For this practice speech, I'd like to be able to start with a strong beginning and kind of work on what I can do to improve the actual final. So I'll just begin. Who are we? How did we get here? And most importantly, what is our purpose? Have these questions ever passed through your mind? These questions have definitely passed through my mind, and I've often thought about how one could improve or at least work this into their life. Luckily, there's a plethora of articles and essays on that very thing, and I'd like to relay that to the audience, you. And naturally, for postulating the meaning of life, I turned to philosophical thought, like Nietzsche and Seneca, for answers for this speech. So I'd like to think about the meaning of life as something one should be able to develop and reform for every individual to achieve a more fulfilling life. I'd like to explain what I mean by this, by the meaning of life, by everyone should consider a meaning or purpose to your life, and how you can begin to formulate your own sense of meaning. Before you can even realize the meaning of your life, you should probably know what I mean by it. So the meaning of life defined is usually considered either a person or a broad answer to the question of what is life, or to what end do we live for, the purpose of it all. In a thought that I read in 1988, Rucker and Wong described the meaning of life as a belief construct consisting of cognitive, motivational, and affective components. Cognitive being the thought process that we usually have, and motivational being how that affects our lives, and affective being how all of this comes together to affect how we think and how we feel. Most importantly, how we feel. They affect each other. So the affective being the realizations of personal meaning. And the meaning of life in a universal sense is more about all humans and for what reason we are here. But a more realistic meaning for an individual would be their own meaning, their own set of beliefs to follow or be motivated by. These beliefs can be built off of, meaning they can be then used to understand what can be meant for your own life in particular, and how that can be used to kind of make your own thoughts and make your own, not own beliefs, because that's what is affected by this, but more how you live and more how you like living or dislike certain things. It's your disposition. And why doing this may help you is kind of complicated, because it's more about how every single person is affected by this in particular. Seneca, a philosopher, said, "When a man does not know what harbor he is making for, no wind is the right wind." And I found this quote while reading through an article on the test to achieve the meaning of life, but this is more not about how, but more why. And having a belief set in yourself is important in life, as it's a type of anchor, like Seneca said with the boats, more to extend the metaphor, is the purpose of why we do what we do. It's an interesting mix of real life events and a spiritual belief. They're coexisting to make how you feel, and what you actually feel is a good motivation for how you are. People look to put their influence in the world, and they put their influence on the world to their own benefit, to your own benefit. They try to focus on how they can act and how that can affect other people. I'm sure you felt this yourself, in the sense that when you're just kind of trying to argue a point for yourself, like you'll even do for your own videos, it's more for how you can improve from it, and that's definitely how the meaning of life kind of works. And thinking about this is great and all, but it's also very important to understand how this actually works. So, how? Formulating the meaning of life, and when I began to think about a meaning of life, especially for the topic of this video, it sounded really grand and intimidating, but I try to make my own meaning of life in particular not so important or setting a life goal, but it's more about how I feel and how I actually want to react to things. It's definitely the most important thing in kind of trying to set more satisfying lifestyle. I try not to think about the grand scheme of things. I think of it more as an outlook, right? As a point of view to work with. And another philosopher named Nietzsche said that the meaning of life was non-existent as a whole, and it was up to every individual to discover their own sense of meaning, which I think is more important for every single person to understand, that it's important just to get your own set of beliefs and set up how you can feel about it and how that very thing is important to you. But how it helps, more importantly, is going back to the Seneca quote: "Without a meaning of life, life is meaningless. But without life, without it, life could mean so much more. So it's good to have a good anchor, a good set point, an end point really, that you can work towards. Not exactly like going to A to B, but more along the lines of how you get there. It's more about how you feel about going there, and you could be sad going there from A to B, but if you understand why you're doing it, you'll be happier for it, and that's the main point of all of this. With all this in mind, you can begin to actualize the meaning of life for a brighter point of view, and a brighter point moving forward. And to summarize the gist of this, find out what the meaning of life is to you, and why you would ever want to look into it. Once it's done, the how and the why will come naturally, as it's important. It's the product of whatever you choose it to be. It's the product of every individual. The most I could ask of you is to focus on this point of view every day. To focus on everything that's important to you and how you can actually achieve a happier life through these points. I'd like to end off with a nice call to action like that, is to just think happier thoughts, but in your own way, in a nice, brief, simple way, just in your own way. Thank you for watching this video.